What a delightful conversation I had with my dear friend Julie Parker. I absolutely loved hearing all about her childhood growing up on a farm and learning more deeply how that has shaped who I know her to be. How her nurturing spirit and ability to ground into a deep sense of calm was birthed in so many ways through her early years living on her family farm. How her love of learning has been such a significant piece of her life ever since grade school, and what it means for her to stay grounded in who she is as a person with every new piece of knowledge she takes in. Let's begin. Welcome to the Devoted Way podcast, all about magic and miracles from me, Sora Schilling. It's time to hone in on your intuition, become masterful at energy work, and live life based on your design, your unique blueprint encoded with stardust from the ethereal realm and from those that have come before you. You know what to do and how to be, so trust in yourself. This podcast series is part of a 13-day challenge called Stellar Transformational Act of Reverence, otherwise known as STAR, hosted inside of our devoted Discord. In each episode, I will randomly announce a keyword that you can use to earn points and win amazing prizes during the challenge. Stay tuned until the end of the episode for more information. Julie Parker is the founder of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy, where she passionately trains heart-centered people to become life coaches. As a co-founder of Priestess Temple School, a global movement devoted to uplifting modern-day priestesses as they explore sacred leadership and service in the 21st century, Julie is committed to contributing to a world where presence, healing, and social justice are honored. She has trained with high priestesses and modern-day mystery schools from all over the world. Julie has inspired thousands of people as an in-demand speaker, sacred space holder, priestess and flower essence practitioner, and is the recipient of numerous leadership and women's awards. Host of the top-ranking Priestess podcast, Julie has interviewed some of the world's great spiritual thought leaders and has a committed spiritual practice that honors her Celtic lineage, connection to the Great Mother, and self. Julie lives in Melbourne, Australia with her husband, stepdaughter, and two much-loved adopted cats. Welcome, Julie. It's good to have you today.
Oh, thank you, Sora. I'm thrilled to be here.
I think we've spent a good majority of time before we pressed record already catching up, didn't we?
Totally. And then we were like, hang on a second, what are we here for again? We better do this.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So one of the reasons I love chatting with you is because it always feels like we're together laying down somewhere with a bed of grass, excuse me, and just chatting and playing. And I'm wondering if you can take us back to those times when you were little, laying on the grass, playing. What was Julie like then, and what did she love doing?
Well, Julie, as a little girl, was very blessed to grow up on a gorgeous farm, a working farm as a little girl that had cows, sheep, goats, chickens, dogs, cats, an orchard, the whole thing. And, loving grandparents and a mother and an uncle surrounded by family as well, an intergenerational family. So as a little girl, I felt very free and very in touch with nature and the cycle of life. And even just sharing that with you now, Sora, has really made me realise that so much of our loves and connections and things that we return to as an adult have those roots in those early years. And maybe it is that we do return to them or we walk away from them altogether. Depending, it could be either, of course. But now when I think to myself about my absolute love of the natural world, cycles, elements, the spiritual nature of the cycle of life. I really do think back to that free little farm girl and how all of that began to take place there.
Okay, so as a girl, what was your favorite chore and what was the chore that you hated the most?
Well, my favourite chore really was not so much of a farm chore, but it was a supporting the farmer's chore. And that was that, especially during what was known to us as kidding season, which was when all of our beautiful goats had their babies. All of the adults at that time used to have to spend an enormous amount of time over in our very large shed taking care of the mother goats and their babies, sometimes just for the first 3 to 4 days of their life, because goats are a little bit more delicate than sheep. Once they have their babies, they have to come in just for some warmth for a little while, whereas little lambs can remain out in the paddock. So during kidding season, my job from about the age of 10 right up until when I was an adult and left home was actually to cook dinner. I arrived home on the bus and arrived home at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I had to chop the vegetables and prepare the dinner. And then at about 5:30, my nana would come home and do the harder things when I was younger, like turn the gas oven on and help me with that. And then she would go back to help. So I was the cook and the nurturer for everyone at that time. Also, probably equally loved for me was any little kid that was maybe rejected by its mum, or mum was having difficulties nurturing the baby. It used to get to bottle feed those babies. And so that was a very nice chore. My least favourite chore, undoubtedly, you're going to laugh at this, Sora, was feeding the chickens and collecting their eggs. I did not like that chore because it involved needing to go into the very large, dark chicken coop, and sometimes there were foxes in there.
What?
And
oh my goodness.
yeah, and they used to freak me out. Like the foxes just used to freak me out. And for some reason, they wouldn't, foxes just, they don't harm human beings. Like, but I always used to get a little bit freaked out if I saw the foxies around. And yeah, so I did never love going into that dark chicken coop. Mind you, I love eggs, and so there was incentive there.
I thought you were going to say because the chickens were sassy or something like that. I didn't think you were going to say because the foxes hung out there as well.
Yeah, well, and so I think the thing is too is that it always created it was a little bit of a dramatic moment or time when the fox were there, because fox in the hen house sort of thing. It's like they're there to get the chickens.
Yes.
And they're there to get the eggs as well. And so I always felt like I was stumbling upon a crime that was about to take place. It's like, oh, I've caught the burglar in the act. It's like, oh, no. And then I used to have to call out for my grandfather, and he would come running and he'd go, oh, those damn foxes. And it was all like, I felt like I needed to fan myself. It's like, oh, drama. It was like, and then there was the count of the chickens, like how many are left? Are they all here? Sort of thing. Have we intercepted in time? And so, yeah, I never loved that. It's like, oh, jolly chickens.
My goodness, the drama of farm life. I never knew, honestly.
Sora, that is one of the least known but also most amazing and fun things about farm life, is that there's often drama, whether it is related to the weather or an animal or an accident of some kind, or the tractor's broken down and you've got to call for neighbours' help or whatever it may mean. Farm life is maybe not as slow and uninteresting as a lot of people think that it might be. It actually, every day is different, and it can come with I remember us having mice plagues. Uh,
I was going to ask you about that, so I'm glad you
mm,
mentioned it. But I'll ask you that after I ask you another question. But keep going.
oh, there's so many different things. You would have drought, and then another year there might be rain that would cause flooding. Uh, you know, a gate would be left open. Oh, great sin on a farm. And animals would get out. Uh, one of the working dogs would get sick and, need help and treatment, and that impact the flow on of the day or the week. All sorts of things would happen. Farms are fascinating, interesting, and amazing places, especially for a child.
Yes, definitely. And such incredible life lessons. So I wanted to ask you that question regarding you are quite the nurturer, and you're also incredibly good when there's a fire, not just like actual fire, but when things happen in life. And I find from my perspective and my relationship with you that it's not that you don't feel all the feelings, but you have a way of then still moving through and finding solutions, figuring out what to do next, and ensuring that everyone's needs are being met in the middle of the turmoil that's happening, whatever drama is happening in life. So do you find much of that had to do with farm life, or that is innate part of you?
Well, I think it might be both. And this is such a wonderful question because I've never actually thought about those initial, childhood and uprearing years in the context of why it is that is something that I do seem to be able to manage as an adult. And I've always thought for myself within my work as a coach and a trainer and the spiritual realms as well, that helping people find clarity is one of my superpowers. And I think that it's partly related to that. But now that you ask this question, I do think that is partly related to that. And it's interesting that you mentioned about fire, because we had bushfire season every single year during the summer. And while some years were light and there might only be, one or two small fires, there were other years where they were very, very big and life-threatening. And I'm particularly remembering the year in the early 80s of Ash Wednesday here in Australia, which was a devastating occurrence, and many people lost their farms and their homes, their lives as well. And yes, I think about times like that and other times where there can be drama and emergency even on a farm, and you have to work together as a team. There's no such thing as separate. These are the days before mobile phones and all of that sort of stuff. You have to be prepared, you have to be conscious, and most of all, you have to keep your cool. Because if one person loses that and starts to fray around the edges, then what happens is that somebody else, in needing to calm and settle that person, is taken away from what it is that they may need to do elsewhere. And so everybody knew, even as children, we were told, basically, your number one job here is to remain calm and to listen and to be focused, and to not go anywhere or do anything that is not instructed to you. And if you just do that, you will be okay. So I remember on Ash Wednesday, for example, my sister and myself as young children were put in the bath, and the bath was filled up, and we had our pet dog in there with us, and the bathroom door was shut behind it. My mother shut it behind us, and she said, "You do not leave this room. Under no circumstances are you to leave this room until an adult comes back and gets you." And so she put us in the safest room in the house, while basically she ran out with her brother and father and my grandmother to fight this fire, and she came back. I have no idea how long we were sitting there, but I remember actually genuinely feeling okay because my mum was calm. She didn't panic. I'm sure she was, because later, when we saw the devastation that happened around us, our farm was okay. We realised that it was actually a really, really big deal. And so I think when you have extraordinary role models like that, and then also experiences of needing to remain calm in situations like that, you can't help but take significant life lessons away with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two parts to that. One could say stay calm, right? So we hear that all the time, stay calm. But to have these moments where in the middle of an actual event, having extraordinary role models show you what that looks like and creates a sense of safety in the middle of the chaos means that you're feeling okay. You know, not everything is right, but you're feeling okay. And then you do what you need to do, which is stay present and listen to the advice of someone who is older and more experienced, and you stay put. And that second thing around not making choices until you like found a place of calm and safety, right? And I think that goes in all levels of someone's place of chaos in their life. It doesn't have to be an event of a fire. It could be just something occurred in their day to day, and all of a sudden they're feeling angst. And so what happens next? And the advice is to stay calm and grounded and present, and then wait before you do something. So incredible advice.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we all know that, or at least I hope everyone listening knows that that experience of being asked to stay calm is, in that context, is very, very different to the way that that term can be used as a weapon.
Absolutely.
And we've all been there. We've all been mansplained, I think, as for anybody that's a woman identifying folk, where we've had a man basically say, settle down, calm down, you're too emotional or too whatever. And that's a weapon, that the way that people say that. There is definitely a way that that can be expressed and taught and role modelled to people in a way where it's genuinely helpful, rather than making somebody feel gaslit and like their emotions and feelings at that time, especially if they're heightened, are not valid.
Absolutely. Yes. So during these moments where you've experienced so much on the farm, what was Julie the same on the farm as she was, let's say, when she was in high school, in school? Or was there a bit of a change of like high school Julie with her friends to then farm Julie when she was back at home?
I think there was a difference for me. I can see that. And I think it's not so much necessarily with friends. I think, because we were all farm girls. I went to a tiny country high school. There were 14 people in my graduating class.
Wait,
from
there were
high
14
school.
people? And I thought I had
14.
I had like 98. That is so small. 14.
So small, Sora. Yeah, absolutely tiny. There were 14 of us that graduated the last year of high school. It was absolutely tiny school. There were about 220, 230 students altogether, right? So, and we were one of the bigger schools in the district. Yeah, so, a really small farming community. And I think the big difference between Julie Farm Girl and Julie at high school is that Julie at high school was geeky, and absolutely, and I embrace that word. I do not see that as a bad word at all. I loved school, Sora. I absolutely loved it. I was and still am one of those people that learning for me is just one of life's great joys. Please give me all the books, all the teachers, all the guides, all the courses. I can't ever imagine not being in a place where I'm not learning. And I've often said to my husband, Glenn, who of course you know very well, that for me, as when I am in my last years as a crone, I would be perfectly happy for my body to just completely have betrayed me. Or no, that's the wrong term. To have gone, be resting, be not working properly anymore. But please universe above, may I still have my mind. May I still be able to read. May I still be able to watch things. May I still be able to learn. Because if I can do those things, I will be okay. You can't project, of course, into the future. None of us know what's going to happen. But there was a difference for me because at school, I was absolutely the library girl, the book girl, the reading girl, the writing girl. And that's very, very different to farm life, where you're using much more different parts of your brain and body.
So, knowing that you are one who will be an avid learner for the rest of your life, which is one thing I love about you. Like, you love research and figuring things out and all of this stuff. And yet, you have the ability to take that information, synthesize it, and then bring it into your own life. And it doesn't heed or it doesn't take this moment or part out of you where you're not significantly still you. You still show up in your brilliance and your magic and you do your thing. So what causes that? Because I find that there are people right now that are questioning, I'm learning so much because I feel I need to know all this stuff and I'm an avid learner, but I have yet to figure out my voice, my thoughts, my way of being in the world. And so they're consuming, but not actually being with themselves out in the world. So, what makes that shift for you? Because you are Julie, like you are Julie
Oh,
Parker, and I know and feel you to your fullest.
mm. Oh my goodness, this is such a good question. And I am not 100% sure that I really know the answer, but the thing that is coming to me is acceptance and presence. And so, what I see a lot of in relation to what you're asking me here is that people can feel as though they need or want to know more from a position of lack. It's like, I don't know enough. And therefore they translate that into being, I am not enough. And so I need another university degree or another course or another certificate. And I don't have that. My approach to learning is about, what do I desire to know? Where can I grow? How can I be deeper and richer with something? Or even, what can I do here for joy and fun? So last year, for example, I undertook a fairly intensive course about flower essences, and it was purely for joy, right? It was all for joy and learning because I adore and love flowers. They are my favorite part of the natural world. And so I think it's about acceptance of myself as to where I am and that I am good enough as I am. And I don't necessarily need these things, but I want and desire them, and they create portals of learning and richness and fun for me. And I think also it's about presence as well, Sora. It's like being not just okay, but being okay with where I am right now. It's like, I desire to be here now and not keep projecting, even though we all do this with our thoughts sometimes, into the future all the time. Of like, okay, when I know this, I'll be better at that. When I've got that tick, then I will be able to do this. Or when I've done that course, then I'll be legitimate and I could start working in that way. And there's no doubt that my embracing of my spiritual nature and the path of the priestess has helped me with that enormously as well. It's like accepting what is and desiring for more, if there even is more in something that I want, and being okay with that.
I was considering the same thing. So, as I was asking the question, I was wondering too, in my own situations, when I feel this need of needing to know more for a particular reason or because they just want to learn. And it's exactly that, which is when I stop thinking about the future, what ifs, or in this place of dream, then and stay present, then whatever I learn is just for me at that moment. it doesn't have to be monetized. It doesn't equate to how valuable I am or anything. And it just gives me a sense of peace and a place of just wonder. And that helps me stay settled and grounded in the present. So beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to ask about the whole mice situation that has happened in your life, because I had a conversation with Eric, my husband, about this, because we have an old house and he's now fixed all the holes. But before then, when it got cold, we would have some visitors at times. And I don't know if it's because living in New York, we experienced rats, which were very, very large. But I get really nervous and skittish when I think there's a little, very cute, but little critter that's running around the house. And I know that you had a plague, right? Like you had this experience. Mm-hmm. So was it because you were a farm girl and you were already used to having different animals around, or how did you deal with that?
Not well.
I think I would have sat and cried like the whole time.
Oh, look, Sora, I don't know any farmer, no matter whether they are older or a child on a farm, that deals with plagues of anything well, whether it's locusts or caterpillars or mice. We had locusts one time and we had mice as well, and in 1 year. And the entire community experienced it in some way. And I can't specifically remember how this came about, but I know that it had something to do with the weather, drought and then rain, and then, they flooded. But look, it is not a great thing to open up the garage to go out to get in the car and something like that, and there's mice scuttling around. And the really big task that you're undertaken with when there is a mice plague on a farm is keeping them out of the house. To a certain extent, you understand that when you step outside, you have to deal with them until things can be gotten under control. But the number one thing that you're trying to do is keep them out of the house, where, of course, you are sleeping and eating and there's food sources, because mice can make you sick. They're rodents, and if they get into things like food and contaminate things, you can become unwell. And you do your best, but sometimes they slip through. And just two funny examples, and this changed the gumboot rule at our house permanently, is that one day after school, it was the middle of winter, I went out to put on my gumboots to get ready to go over to the farm to help with the chores.
May I interrupt one moment? So for the Americans, they know gumboots are rain boots.
Rain boots, right, okay. And I was out on the back porch and I put my foot in my boot, and there was a mouse in it. And I happened to have at the time, so this is sort of like the late 70s, early 80s, Sora. So there was still a bit of flare that was happening on the bottom of pants and jeans, right? There's no such thing as skinny jeans back then. Well, this mouse ran, like it wasn't just in the boot, it ran right up my pant leg. Oh, my Lord. My mother says it was like I was dancing on hot coals, like my feet, and suddenly I am ripping my pants off because I couldn't get this mouse out of my pants. And from that moment on, all gumboots were turned upside down on a stake outside, so no mouse could get in them, or you had to have the presence of mind to tip the boot up before you put it on. And the other time with a mouse, it was at Easter time. So this actually came first. So Easter is in April, and so that's autumn for us here in Australia, moving into winter. So the gumboot I know was in winter and came later. My mum always used to put a chocolate Easter bunny at the top of my bed head, and it was one of those built-in wooden bed heads that was right near my head on Easter Sunday morning. And my sister and I always knew that there would be a bunny there. Well, I woke up on this particular Easter Sunday morning. Oh my gosh, Sora, just even relaying this story is giving me heart palpitations. And its ears had been eaten off. This meant that somewhere in the middle of the night, there had been a mouse or mice that had crawled over my bed or been near my head eating this chocolate bunny. And I just woke up screaming. Like I saw them just screaming. And my mum and Nana came running in the house and I was crying and I was so distressed and upset. And Mum was like, it's no big deal. There's more chocolate. There's more chocolate. It's okay. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I said, this thing has been near my head. I said, and I didn't even realise and all that sort of stuff. And then my mum felt very down on herself for, like, her mum looked at her and said, Barbara, what are you doing putting chocolate out? You know, when we've got a mice problem, she said, yeah, sorry, Mum. Like, it's like when your mum's saying sorry to her mum. Yeah, I maybe didn't think about that, you know, so deeply. And thinking about this as an adult now, like a woman who's, you know, in the next couple of years going to be in her 50s, I realised that at that time my mum was only in her early 30s, you know, like she was so young herself and thinking about this and doing this. And she's like, yeah, that was a mistake. So I don't like mice. The upshot of that story is I don't love them. And I don't even love one, but when you're dealing with them in the thousands, oh, but you know what? Funny stories.
Funny stories. And, you know, you deal with what you have to deal with, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Hey,
it's life.
Amazing regarding just resilience in all sorts of ways, including mice. And the entire picture of the mouse or the mice eating the bunny rabbit's ears, I just picture like a cartoon character and they're just sitting there nibbling and having a conversation about you laying there sleeping.
Exactly. It's like, don't wake her up, Betty. Don't make too much noise. Just keep eating. Just keep eating.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to ask you 3 questions before we close. All right, so the first, what does devoted mean to you?
Passion and commitment to something. Most of all, I hope in my life myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes. If you today were to share a mentor or a loved one that has helped you with that, who would that be?
Oh, Sora, I feel very compelled to say you.
Oh, no way. Stop it.
Yeah, no, I do. I do, because you are more than a friend to me. You are a sister, a guide, a way shower. You are a shapeshifter in your own life and in my life as well. You have this divine ability to be able to show yourself to me and I know to others, but for me in this instance, where you have taught me so much and allowed me to learn so much through you, from you, and with you. Mm. And that is what is on my heart in answer to that question.
Thank you. I fully accept that.
Keyword is moon magic. Moon magic.
Good.
Next question. What have you binged watched or binged read recently?
I am binge watching.
And no judgment, you can say anything.
Okay, what I am actually watching at the moment are old episodes from the start of Law and Order SVU.
Ooh.
Yeah, it is reminding me of my very early days as a social worker. And I recently saw the lead actress, Mariska Hargitay, interviewed about the fact that she's been the lead actress on this show for more than 20 years. And I had never really watched it. I knew of it, but I'd never really watched it. And I was so enamored with her in this interview. And I thought, wow, I need to maybe watch that show. And when I make a commitment to watch something, I love to watch it from the start. And I'm now 3 seasons in and absolutely am going the whole way. It's a harsh watch at times, but also deeply life affirming as well in so many ways. And, there's 20 odd seasons now, and I can imagine I'm going to go the whole way.
Yeah, I get that. I don't, I like to watch shows that are real and compelling as to what's happening in life. I know many people feel as if they're a bit too sensitive for all of that to experience all of that, and I completely hold that in people who have that. But for me personally, there's something about being really grounded and open and real as to what's happening in life that actually allows me to keep priestessing the way that I do. So that's very fascinating.
Yes, I would say that I'm exactly the same. I go through different stages in regards to shows and watching certain things, and everyone, of course, is different. My husband, for example, would never watch that show because he is absolutely a highly sensitive empath and person. He will not watch those shows. He will not watch any programs to do with animal cruelty. And he will not watch anything that involves particularly anything where children or women are being hurt or harmed in a severe way, ongoing. It's just not something that his psyche computes in a good way. Whereas when I see things like that, it reminds me in many ways, as I was saying before, of my early days as a social worker. It brings back, for me, sometimes quite positive memories. And it's often made me think of many of the girls and women and mothers in particular I worked with at that time. And watching the show, interestingly enough, made me reach out to a fellow nurse that I used to do outreach street work with. And I contacted her, and I hadn't been in touch with her for years. And we ended up having a coffee together a couple of weeks ago. I said, "How are you? What are you doing now?" And it was so wonderful. And we sat there and we talked about many of the people that we used to work with, wondering, I wonder how they are now and what they're doing and if they're okay. And we're sure that probably some of them are not, but that many others will be. And it was actually a really touching conversation that makes you think about a particular part of your life. And I also love that the show too, even though I'm watching older episodes, I can see how they are addressing current things in life, such as, there is a wonderful African-American policeman, detective that is part of the group. And every now and again in the show, he will say something that makes it clear to the rest of the squad and team, I am having a different lived experience here than you are. Please don't forget that. And I'm excited to see where the show is going to go as it evolves, because I'm sure they're going to continue to touch on more current things that we're experiencing now. But the stories that elevate me the most are the ones of survival and resilience and how people come through. Yes, there are a lot of things in there that are not that great, but it is that darkness and shadow of life that then also illuminates the light and the survival and the love. And at the moment, it's my binge for sure.
Love it. All right, I'm going to stop here and say thank you so much. But what I'm also going to do is plead that very soon you'll come back, because I still want to talk about priestessing, activism, the way in which you intentionally purchase. There's all these other things I do want to talk about. So may I ask for a promise that we'll come back to do a part 2?
Oh my gosh, please, let's do that. And
excellent.
Thank you for just this delightful conversation and bringing up so many beautiful memories for me, except the mice.
Well,
and the fox. It's like,
I'm glad I could be of service.
You have been. Thank you, my love.
Until next time. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
It is a blessing to serve you. My deepest desire is to bring nourishment to your soul, activate and enliven your inner landscape, and find inspiration through the sacred stories of others so we remember we are collectively woven. If you're currently playing with us in our devoted Discord, remember to submit the keyword and complete the other moves to earn points and win amazing prizes. If you're not playing yet, visit devotedway.com/star, STAR, to sign up. If you would like to listen to more Devoted Way podcast episodes, watch Devoted TV, or read about mysticism, spiritual devotion, magic and intuition, or creating a prosperous new world, I invite you to enter our virtual temple home at devotedway.com. As I continue to serve, may I humbly ask for a sacred exchange. I would so appreciate it if you would write a love note, otherwise known as a review. Share the episode with your friends and community members, and engage with me on Instagram. Stay sacred and discover your path and join the Devoted Way. May magic and miracles occur in your life every day as you co-create a prosperous new world with the Great Mother. Until next time, this is Sora Schilling.